Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to a special Mother's Day edition of the FutureSox podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. I'm joined by the one, the only James Fox. How are you, James?
I'm good, sir. What's going on?
Uh, you know, um,
Mother's Day.
interesting. Yep, Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody
To
who's listening.
all
Everybody, moms are listening to us right now. So
possibly. And if you have a mother, hopefully you have reached out to yours, and
Yes.
everything is good. So the White Sox have started playing baseball as of late, so that's a nice happening. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they look a lot better. I think if they play 500 ball the rest of the way, they'll win 70 games. I don't expect that, but at least it's watchable. I think some of the stuff on the pitching development side is a little bit promising. Some of the vets are not as awful as we're like. Paul DeYoung is okay at baseball. Tommy Pham is good somehow. Like he'll help a contender fairly soon, probably is my guess. Like those two guys, and then you have like Gavin Sheets holding his own. I think it's like a 780 OPS. But then I think I guess what the big takeaway is Corey Lee. Like if you found yourself even a backup catcher, that's a win. They have a guy that you feel comfortable enough to play. So I think small victories, but Caro Lee possibly as early as next season by midseason, not bad.
Yeah, that would be my thinking. The whole thing with Corey Lee, and this is like across the board. The White Sox front office at the time, because of the way things had been for the few years and how things had just funneled so bad, nobody wanted to give them any benefit of any doubt with any of the acquisitions that they made last year, especially when those guys came over and didn't do what, weren't all world players. People, immediately slagged on them. And what you're seeing on the return of all of those trades of last year pretty much is everybody is back to performing how they were performing before they were with the White Sox. And Corey Lee especially, he's performing like he was performing even probably better so than when he was with the Astros, and he came over with a hand injury and took a while to imagine it took a while for a hitter to start hitting again with a hand injury.
Well, and catchers take a while. Like we always talk about this, like these catchers, like people think they're busts and then it's like they're 25, 26 and they're in the big leagues and they're fine, right? Sometimes it just takes a while. Like I don't know who made those deadline trades, some combination of Kenny and Rick, like Chris gets involved, whatever, but like they did a pretty good job. I think we both said it, at the time, and nobody cared obviously, right? Cause it's like, but like, yeah, they traded a bunch of guys who weren't going to be on the team this year or definitely on their next like good team, like with the exception of the Berger trade, which like we both like the Sox end of that, but like I get that, right? Like, okay, Berger could have been here. Everybody else though, you've traded guys like the Angels trade right now looks ridiculous because you weren't bringing back Lopez, you weren't bringing back Giolito, and you got Edgar Caro, who, is a newly minted top 100 prospect, like pretty much everywhere. And Kai Busch looks awesome. Kai Busch looks better than he looked with the Angels. He looks like it's the guy that was at St. Mary's getting a bunch of like late first round buzz. That's who Kai Busch looks like right now. We're going to get into the prospects. And then obviously like, the Dodgers trade was good. Eater looks better. You mentioned Corey Lee. They also traded for Aldrin Bautista. So yeah, the deadline moves were pretty good.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to open things up with the Major League Club and just kind of get that out of the way because we are FutureSox and we don't generally talk about the Big League Club. But Brian Ramos, who was one of ours,
we got a guy there. Yes,
we have to claim him. We have to because he's been one of the ones that has been marinating in the minor leagues for a few years, and he finally gets called up, and he is holding his own in Chicago with the White Sox, and he's putting together professional at bats. He's playing defense, like how I put out a bunch of tweets showing his defense down in the minors, and he's showing that with the White Sox. I mean, the throws have been a little bit a little bit adventurous over the last couple of games, but for the most part, he's been really a breath of fresh air, especially coming from the development side of the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, we're not used to like the good performances, right? Like, I don't think we totally knew what to expect, like, because we said it last week. It's not like Brian Ramos was like kicking the door down, right? Like, it was a little bit out of necessity because of 40-man stuff, and it's like, okay, we'll let him run with it and see. We talked a little bit off air, like he is down to a like 76 WRC plus. It's 8 games, but I mean, he looks good at third. He looks like he belongs. I don't see any reason to like send him back, until maybe he starts like really chasing and scuffling, and then maybe you send him to Charlotte. But then I do think he returns again after that, because I think it's very clear right now, like the plan, like if they have it their way, he's at third in 2025 with Montgomery at short, and that's the left side of your infield. And whether it works or not, who knows, right? But that seems to be the plan. It doesn't seem like too like big for him mentally. It's just, Major League Baseball's hard. So, we'll see. He's not walking very much, but look, he's not like a high walk player like in the minor leagues either. So, that could be the one thing. He could get himself in trouble, start chasing, whatever. But, as long as the defense isn't affected, like, I mean, you want to see Danny Mendick or Zach Remillard there? Like, I'd rather see Brian Ramos personally.
Yeah, I don't see the point in sending him back at this point. I mean, you had to put him on the 40-man. So it's time, granted, as you mentioned, he was at AA, and it did seem like it was out of necessity, not necessarily out of a, him pushing to get called up. But immediately when brought to the White Sox, he has put together professional at-bats. He has looked like a Major League Baseball player. So what really is the point, especially when whoever you're going to put in and slot in at third base other than him is going to be somebody like a Remillard or a Mendick or somebody that you don't really foresee being a major cornerstone of the next good team with the White Sox. So I don't really see the point in making any changes there, not to mention the 40-man possibilities.
Well, and I think it's funny, like mainstream media type guys, like your like sports radio guys and stuff were surprised because they tuned into a White Sox game and saw this kid playing, and they just like assumed that he was going to suck because that's what happens, right? Like, I can tell you, like, till I'm blue in the face that Lenyn Sosa is good, but like if you watched him in the big leagues, like Lenyn Sosa is not good, right? Like it's
Hasn't been.
right. So like we follow the minor league, so it's a little bit different for us. Like it's not terribly surprising. Like Brian Ramos is pretty polished. I think he's somewhere in that 101 to 150 prospect range. I don't think he's necessarily a top 100 guy, and I think that's fine. Like, but yeah, I mean they got other guys similar to this too. That's why it's like not all bad. Like I haven't taken the approach that this is like the end of the world here, because I think that they have some talent. They need a lot more. But I mean, some of these kids coming up and playing well, like, isn't going to surprise me that much.
Yeah, when you go back to 2017, 2018, where the system was super top heavy with absolutely no depth underneath that top heavy couple of pieces. Now you look at it and there are a couple of top heavy pieces, but there's a lot more depth there. So I think, we're going to start seeing some of this talent come up. And I know White Sox fans, you've heard this before. You've heard this dance, but the song and dance before. But the system has produced some fairly decent talent coming up here in the next couple of years. At least that's the way it's projecting right now. So,
Yeah,
do
and
you want?
there'll be more guys coming. Obviously, like on the positional side, it's really not much unless they plan on getting pretty aggressive. We're going to see lots of pitchers though.
Yeah, there's so much pitching. Today was not Drew Thorpe's best day, by a long shot. He only made it 2/3 of an inning, which is obviously probably I would have to imagine probably his low mark for his career, his professional career. But all that said, it was missing by small margins. So there's that. But you look at the success across the board for literally almost every other pitcher in the system. Everything is looking up. Even one of the pieces that really intrigued me with the Aaron Bummer trade, being Riley Gowan's. Today he had his best start of his minor league career, and he's
Yeah, he
been
had
kind of
10
building up to that.
strikeouts today, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
over
good.
7 innings. Yeah, so it's the longest outing for a dash starter this year, and like you said, 10 strikeouts, and he's kind of been building up to that, and he's looked a lot more comfortable as we've been going on through this season. And there's just, from AAA down, there seems to be just plethoras of pitching, and I don't know where they're all going to go, but they're all obviously not going to hit, and they're not going to be superstars, but the depth is definitely there, and they look like every single rotation in the White Sox system looks competent.
Well, and even to that, like there's guys that could be like a level up that can't go a level up because you have like full rotations. Like I'm talking about like Grant Taylor later on is like pitching in Arizona, which to me like seems a bit unnecessary. But I mean, you have 6 pitchers starting in Kannapolis right now because there's like not space for these guys to go to Winston. Now, look, I think any given day you could get the notification that any one of Iriarte, Thorpe, Adams, Eater, or Bush could just be in Charlotte, and then the line filters on up. But we're not at that day yet, right? So I think that's the area where there's some space, would be guys going up to Charlotte, and then a couple maybe from Winston up to Birmingham and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean these I think we kind of talked about like these rotations are pretty good. So
yeah, they're legit.
lots of interesting performances, which is good.
Yeah. So do you want to move into prospect performances here of the top prospects?
Yeah, I think just maybe like a refresh, like some of the top guys in the system. I mean, obviously, like we're not Baseball America here. Like we're not going to re-rank our top 30 like every month. Like I kind of think that stuff gets baked in. Like when we re-rank at mid-season, we factor in all the struggles and whatnot to like make an accurate ranking. So we'll kind of look at our top guys, and then if there's a couple that we want to like dig a little bit, because I think there's Kai Bush was 18th. We probably want to talk about him a little bit. So there's some guys like that. Brooks Baldwin unranked by FutureSox. They should shut our website down. Like, yeah.
I mean, he looked good last year, but I was not foreseeing what happened this season.
I think my ranking process was probably too democratic. I'm going to have to take it over at midseason.
Yeah. There you go. Just shut everybody down.
Right. Just
no, absolutely not.
We're ranking this guy. Yeah.
That's fair. So we'd start off at number 1. Colson Montgomery, the top White Sox prospect, every list, everywhere. It started off rough for him in AAA, which we kind of thought was an aggressive assignment right off the bat. Seeing how the results were in AA last year, seeing him immediately slotted in at AAA right off the bat was kind of a little bit, for me, a little bit scary. Kind of wanted to see him build up some confidence in AA, but in AAA, started off real slow, but in the last 2 series, I believe he's at a 151 WRC plus or 150 WRC plus.
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting things is like, for all the struggles, right? He's a 22-year-old 3-sport high school kid that like didn't focus on baseball until late, who is young for AAA, obviously still, right? And even like, I think if somebody said like it's been more bad than good, we wouldn't argue with that, right? And it's still a 105 WRC plus overall and a 351 on base percentage. Like that's this kid's like struggling, right? Like, like it's
Yeah.
pretty. It's just like the context of it, right? Like the guys that are like this, it's kind of what you said, right? It's 12 good games, and oh look, the back of the baseball card normalized. Like it's fine, right? It's pretty much. He's got 6 homers. He's got a 14% walk rate. I will say the K rate's really high. It's like still close to 30, which will come down. But look, I mean, he takes a lot of pitches, like, and if like developing and getting to game power is a thing, he's going to strike out more. Like he's just going to. That's like kind of the way this goes, because you're taking more pitches in order to get ones that you can do damage on. Like the strikeout rate will probably increase, but as long as the walk rate stays where it is, I think he's going to be just fine. You would know more than me on just any longstanding defensive concerns and how that's been at Charlotte. So I think that would be like, I think he's fine at shortstop. I don't think anybody's saying, he has to move or he has to stay. I think, if like Jacob Gonzalez is like awesome at shortstop, then, you'll have a discussion in a year and a half about what to do. But I mean, there's no reason right now to move Colson Montgomery off shortstop. It's not like it's the bat's good enough, but the defense isn't. I think he's okay. And honestly, if he keeps this up, we're probably going to see him. I mean, I don't think super soon, but, fairly soon, probably by the time the season ends. Yeah.
Yeah, sometime this year for sure is my guess, unless something goes into a major tailspin. Just to clarify, he has a 149 WRC plus in his last 2 series. He did not play today. And as far as the defensive stuff goes, I'm with you. There's not really anything right now that would suggest that he cannot play shortstop. Now, as to whether Jacob Gonzalez is better at shortstop or not, his intuition of what's happening on the baseball field, probably better because he's focused on baseball for a really, really long time comparatively to Colson Montgomery. So there's going to be a learning process for Colson Montgomery as he goes up levels. It's just kind of the way things are going to be. But as far as the athleticism goes, he's definitely solid enough to play shortstop.
Well, and even with some of the, I knew he was on kind of a heater, but I even expected to open Fangraphs and see 88 WRC plus, right? Yeah. Nope, it's 105. Even with, okay, this is fine. Yeah, so.
Yeah, even with all the struggles, Chicken Little comes, Chicken Little running around crying about the sky falling, and he's got a 105 WRC plus.
Well, and I speculated a little bit, but it does seem like the power, I don't know if the White Sox told him or if it's just a goal of his. It seems like he wants to get to his power. When he was, I think the thing that was really impressive about him when he entered the system was he came in as a fairly raw high school kid, and his, he just knew how to control the strike zone. He had all those walks in Arizona and Kannapolis, and we didn't really see the power then, but we saw the on-base ability. Well, now it's kind of both, right? Now it's okay, he's big and filled out and the power is going to be there. It just seems like a concerted effort that, to me anyways.
Yeah, I think the one thing that people are still going to hang their hat on is over the last 2 series, he has dropped his K rate. His K rate's down to 21%. But the thing is that his walk percentage is at 19%. So that's just absurd. The one thing that people are going to hang their hat on, though, is that he does still have and I know that this is an old world stat. So get out your Amish hat. He's hitting 243. So people are going to still kind of probably, that
351 on base percentage is the number. I look at the second number, so 100%. I know you do too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's at 404 in his last 2 series. So that's even better than over the full season. So he's definitely on a heater, and he's starting to figure things out. So it's really nice to see. Moving along to the number 2 prospect, the other guy that most people probably want to hear about.
Yeah, he's decent.
Yeah, Noah Schultz. So his last start was 4 innings. They've been generally keeping him right around 4 innings for his pitch counts. I want to say he had 4 strikeouts and gave up a run. Nothing too crazy. I think it was a I don't even remember how it was scored, but either way, he still looks really stinking good.
Yeah, like he's got a 211 FIP. So he's thrown 23.1 innings only, but like he only threw 27 last year. So, the next time we do this next weekend, I think he will pass the number of innings that he threw last year. I mean, look, even if he's throwing 4 innings a start and makes 20 starts, he's going to get to 80, right? So this is probably ultimately fine. In those 23 innings, 38 Ks to 6 walks. I think that'll work. Like guys can't hit this kid. Like they just can't. And anytime he gets himself in trouble, it's probably going to be like a walk and a homer. Like somebody can homer off of him. But I mean,
Yeah,
he's
that's
adding cutters, he's adding like extra pitches still. Like he is nasty. Just like one of the best left-handed starters in the minor leagues. The most important thing for him is just pitching. Like he needs to pitch. He needs to, I don't know what the number is, but we've talked about it, 70, 80, something in that range. So then he can have a full workload up to about 130, 140 next season. And then you're talking about him pitching in the big leagues after that. So,
yep. Yeah, I agree with that. He has looked pretty much almost completely unhittable. Not completely, but almost completely.
Lefties like get the flu on days that he starts.
Yeah, they don't want to have anything
They're
to do
like,
with that.
Coach, I don't feel well.
Absolutely not. So Jacob Gonzalez last year with Kannapolis did not look good. His swing looked off balance. The contact was never really solid, never really good contact. This year, after reworking his swing in the offseason, looks completely different. And this season, with the Dash, he has 12 multi-hit games, which is the most of any White Sox, of any of the Dash. It's the most multi-hit games. He has 3 home runs, 17 RBIs, or 12 RBIs, 17 runs scored, is at a 9.6 K rate, and has a 151 WRC plus. Pretty good.
Yeah, he's been he's been good at short. It's a 400 on base percentage. That's the one thing that's not surprising, right? I think he's got 3 homers, right? And I think like something between like 12 and 15 would be pretty normal with a 400 on base percentage, and like he can play shortstop. It's pretty good. I know a lot of people didn't like that pick. It's not the pick I would have made, but they look right so far because he looks pretty good.
Yeah, the thing is, he just looks like a baseball player.
He's solid.
Doesn't have elite foot speed, but he's stealing bases.
Yeah.
I think he's got 6 stolen bases.
So like what's your philosophy on, like, I know it's not like there's an immediate need, but like, I mean, should he go to Birmingham at some point? I mean, he's a college guy. He's 21. So it's like, he doesn't have to, but I mean, I mean, if he keeps doing this, if it's going to be a 150 or 160 WRC plus at high A, I don't see why not, personally.
Yeah, my thinking, I guess, is that if you have a 400 OBP and 151 WRC plus through a month and a half of games in Winston-Salem, it's time to go.
Yeah,
because if he does this here, I want to see what he does at the next level. Right. And either he's going to struggle or he's going to keep on chugging along, and either the numbers, like Wilfred Veras, his numbers got better when he went to AA.
Right.
It's entirely possible that when he gets bumped up, reinvigorated, and he starts hitting the ball even more. I don't, we won't know until we see it, but I don't see much point in him languishing in advanced A for another 2 months if he's going to continue to do this.
Right. And if you're Chris Getz, where second half of 2025, Jacob Gonzalez could maybe be your second baseman, like if that's possible, yeah, then let's see Birmingham. He could end there. He could start in Charlotte. He could start back in whatever, but then at least you're on this trajectory where you're part of next year's team at some point. I mean, like obviously like this is pie in the sky to be this positive on a White Sox podcast, but I don't know that it'll work, but I mean your infield, you could have Ramos, Colson, Montgomery, and Gonzalez like in it, like in 2025 for parts of it anyways.
Yeah. And it's just really bizarre to think that is a possibility after what we've witnessed from position player development over the last 10 years.
It doesn't even include Edgar Caro either.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, he's looked pretty good himself as well. Who do you want to move on to next? Do you want to move on to Caro?
Yeah, we can do Caro and then get into pitch because it's pretty pitching heavy after that, I feel like. But I mean, yeah, Edgar Caro, another guy with a hot, like 134 WRC plus switch hitting catcher. He's got 6 homers, which like the power is back from, you could go into some of the struggles last year. Like it's the same thing. Like we talked about the trade deadline last year and how he probably shouldn't have been in AA, but the Angels sent him there, I think the only gripe I would have is like the walk rate is down fairly significantly at 6.4%. But he's hitting and slugging to make up for it. So like to me, if he can definitely catch and switch hit and slug, fine. Like that's fine.
Yeah. The OBP is still at 318 with a 250 average. And that's after basically the entire Barons offense kind of going to sleep for the last week. He did, I think he had 3 RBIs today, which I think he had 2 hits earlier today. So it looks like they're starting to pull themselves out of a tailspin because they look pretty ugly for the last week. But then again, it's entirely possible that the Marlins AA pitching staff is halfway decent. It wouldn't be the first time for sure.
Yeah, they can't hit, but they can usually pitch pretty well. So, however we want to rank these, there's like a whole host of like next guys, right? Like we talked about Thorpe a little bit because he struggled today, but coming into today, he had a 101 ERA. Today was his first bad start. What do you make of just like the decreased strikeout rate? So he's been really good with with 8 Ks per 9. I think he was 11 Ks per 9 with the Yankees and then 13 the year before that. Obviously, he's in AA. So he's still getting it done without strikeouts, but I feel like, he's going to need that part of his game, like in the big leagues for sure.
Yeah, he's going to, the thing is he's still missing bats. But there has been a little bit less strikeout going on. The ability to finish them off for the strikeout hasn't been happening as much with the Barons. I have noticed that the slider isn't as sharp as it was when he was in the Yankee system last year. So I'm kind of wondering like what the deal is with that. It still moves, but last year there were, I went back and watched a couple of his starts when we acquired him, and the slider seemed to move quite a bit more than it has been so far this year. So I'm kind of interested as to why that is. The velocity is still there. The changeup is still disgusting. But I want to see. I want to see what's going to happen with this pitch because that's going to be you don't want to be Michael Kopech where you've got 2 pitches. You need to have more than 2 pitches. So
he's actually pitching like Giolito. Some would fall into that, like where you just fastball change all the time and you have nothing else to go to. And when your changeup's awesome, like you're fine. But if it's not, you're throwing 35 pitch first innings. And I will say you didn't touch on this, but we talked about it earlier just with his start today. Like this happens in the big leagues. Drew Thorpe's going to come out for the second and hopefully like fix it and like be fine, right? But in the minor leagues, he threw 34 pitches in the first. They basically just end your day after that. White Sox minor leaguers, they don't let you throw many more than like 30 in one inning.
Yep. Yeah, I think the magic number is 35, and he got to 34 with a pop-up to right field. Yeah. So that meant that, going into the next at-bat, and if he didn't get him out in one pitch, that they would have hit them, the hard cutoff, and
Yeah.
so it was like next to batter was going to be the hard cutoff.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much it for him. So
Well, I'm interested. I think it's interesting that they're still doing that under Bannister. Not that it's wrong. It might be fine, right? I just, now you have like new pitching development people, like in theory, and they're still doing this. So, okay. Like maybe that's like a thing and it's fine.
I mean, it seems to be kind of the thing across minor league baseball in general. I think that they, when you have a high stress inning,
Right.
They would rather err on the side of caution and not damage an arm by having them go 45 pitches in one inning.
Yeah.
Just, on principle, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense down in the minor leagues because you don't want to waste bullets down in the minor leagues, and B, you don't want to get them injured by overextending them either,
Yeah, and he'll just make up the pitches on like a side day or a bullpen or something, which is fine.
100%. Yeah, I'm sure he probably went and threw some pitches down in the bullpen after that whole thing. Obviously, I can't see, and it was a visiting broadcast, so I definitely couldn't see anything that the Barons were doing because that broadcast is pretty rough. So when it comes to Barons, anyway.
Right. So some of the names that we wrote down, I mean, obviously, like we'll get into Jairo Iriarte and Jake Eater. I think we'd be remiss to not at least mention, like, obviously Jonathan Cannon and Nick Nastrini are wasting away in Charlotte, kind of. I think they'll be back in the big leagues whenever, like, a Chris Flexen trade happens or whatever, right? Brad Keller, or, like, they designate Michael Soroka for assignment. Like, these guys are going to finish the year in Chicago for the most part, and they're just like getting their innings in, kind of like what you talked about in Charlotte. So I don't really think it's necessary to like get too heavily into those two guys if you don't want to. But Jairo Iriarte had an interesting start this week with 8 walks for Birmingham. He was good before then. It's obviously still a 2.10 ERA, 32 Ks in 30 innings. He looks mostly fine. The stuff's really good. Watching him pitch, I definitely understand like the people that have reliever concerns.
Yeah. Especially with 8 walks.
Yeah. But it's also like in a super high leverage role, like if it got to that point, right? Like if they're like, okay, this guy can't start, it's an 8th inning guy, basically. So, which is still pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it right now.
Yeah, I'm not either.
And the fact that this start was the anomaly, it's not like he's going out every single time.
No, he's been really good
before 6, 7, 8 guys.
How did he not throw 35 pitches in an inning?
That and the thing is that how does he not get pulled before he gets to 8 walks? It was bizarre, but the thing is that he always made the pitch when he needed to.
Yeah.
And got out of any like major jams that he put himself into, because he did put himself into jams a lot that game, as you would imagine, with 8 walks. So
it's like he's screwing around and loading the bases on purpose. Like it's like, what are we doing here, man? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, at that point, if you want to put yourself in that situation, just automatically do it so you keep your pitches.
Yeah.
But really, it was a very bizarre start. And I'm sitting here watching it. I'm like, he just walked another guy. He just walked another guy. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then he'd get himself out of it. So I have no idea what the deal was this particular week. And the thing is that it wasn't consistently terrible pitches. There was some that were just slightly missing. There were some bad pitches. But, the umpires in that series also, I know Mason Adams definitely was not a fan of the home plate umpire in his start. Thorpe did he got squeezed on the top half, like the top third of the zone today. And part of the problem is that where the pitches were being asked to be delivered, he was not hitting his spots. He was missing by like 2 feet. But technically, yes, if you look at the strike zone, they are technically still strikes, but they were so far away from where they were being asked for that, that eye level change for the umpire it wasn't working out. So,
yeah. So, there's a couple other guys. Jake Eater seems to be back closer to what he was with the Marlins, 2.17 ERA. Or is it? No, I think it might be a 217 FIP, right? I think
Yeah,
that's what it
that's
was.
yeah. There's a
Yeah,
FIP. Yep.
the ERA is a little bit higher. It's over
Yep.
11 Ks per nine, but the big number is walking 6 per 9. Last year, it's down to like mid threes, which is where he's going to need to live in like 30 innings. But the stuff looks mostly back for Jake Eater, so that's been pretty promising. He's another
He's
guy
getting there.
40 man who we could essentially see like whenever.
Yeah, the anger of the Eater trade, I'll rephrase that. The anger surrounding the Jake Berger trade, the return on that Jake Eater has looked a lot better this year, and he's still not there yet. He's in the process of getting there, and he does look significantly better than he did last year. But he's still working back into being what he was pre TJ. He's not at a finished product status, I wouldn't say right now, but he's on his way there. I can see where he's headed. I can see where things are going here, and it looks like things are trending in a very good direction.
Yep. So that whole rotation, and I know like Mason Adams has been good, and then Kai Bush looks like a completely different guy. I mean, so there was a lot of buzz about Kai Bush his last year at St. Mary's. There was some like late first round buzz for him. And then I think he was a second round pick of the Angels, but he's got a 2.20 ERA in Birmingham and like just over 32 innings pitched with 41 Ks in those 32 innings. He's been pretty lights out for the most part, like for much of the season. He's another one of these guys that's like 24, I think. So if we see Kai Bush, that wouldn't be a surprise. Just another deadline trade that's looking pretty good.
Yeah, he's just really tough to square up. The velocity is good, the movement is good. For whatever reason, the batters just can't seem to square him up very well, and yeah, night and day difference. But again, when I point at the fact that the White Sox fans don't want to give the front office their flowers, so to speak, about those trades, him and Eater were like the two big ones where nobody wanted to hear anything about the fact that, well, they're both coming off of injury. So you probably want to give this some time to work itself out. Kai Bush back from a lat injury. Yes, technically he was healthy last year, but he wasn't where, you know, in his mechanics and everything, he wasn't back to normal. Now he's back to normal. Looks fantastic. So,
yeah, it's, and there's some guys that, we didn't really have ranked in the top portion of this, but like Brooks Baldwin has performed all year. Wilfred Veras has pretty much performed all year. Both guys in Birmingham, which is interesting. We didn't really get into Peyton Paulette. He's had some struggles. The strikeout rate's really good. I don't know that the stuff's all the way back, but there's some issues there, but he is striking guys out and he's not walking as many, I feel like, right? So
yeah, his velocity is not back yet. Yeah. He's still running around like 95, 96.
Yeah.
Where at, when he was in college,
Arkansas,
he was hitting 99.
Arkansas.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So one guy where that's like been the opposite is Grant Taylor. I'll have an article about Grant Taylor, on the site either today or either tomorrow or Monday, Tuesday, something like that. But so he was like 97 to 100 the other night in Arizona. Really nasty curveball. He did give up 3 earned in 3 innings, but he struck out 7. So it's pretty much what I expected there. I think he gave up a bomb in Arizona, which happens. So he's just another guy that's super interesting. I mean, if he does this, like even in the Arizona League, he's like fringe top 10 right in there. I know like there's quite a few good prospects, but I think he's in that like 8 to 12 group probably if he, continues to pitch pretty successfully. And then look, it's been 5 games. 1 game, Big George Wolkow wore the golden sombrero.
Yeah.
Another game, he went 4 for 5. He's got a home run if you just look at his numbers, he's got a 144 WRC plus in Arizona, but it's 5 baseball games. So, it's a lot of boom or bust with Big George. It's going to be a lot of strikeouts. There's real power. He's just got to play. He's 18 years old. He should be like in high school still.
Yeah, and Mogollon, same thing. Started off with that first same game as Wolkow. They both struck out 4 times in the same game, and I think he just hit I think Mogollon hit a home run yesterday.
He did. He's homer. Yeah. He's got a bunch of strikeouts, a few walks, and a bomb. And it seems like that's how it's going to be. The one guy we did not rank, but he's had some prospect shine. Abraham Nunez has been pretty terrible so far. He's struggled. It happens. I think some guy. We've talked about guys go there and get lost. It's only 5 games. We could talk next Sunday, and he might have like an 850 OPS by then. Who knows? I mean, it's just like possible. The Arizona League is crazy.
Yeah, Burrows has been great.
Really good. So far. He looks really, really good. So, and honestly, he probably should be in Canny, but that's fine. Like, get him the success, like where he is, and then kind of go from there. There's some interesting pitching in Arizona, but these guys are throwing 3 or 4 innings at a time. I don't know. Like, I like Opper, and I don't think Matthias Lacombe is thrown yet. So maybe that's tonight if they're playing, but we'll see. I feel like maybe they're off. They're off Sundays, and then they'll play tomorrow. So we'll have a game tomorrow because it'll be ACL.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see. Anybody else we forgot that is pressing? I mean, obviously, like, we didn't really get into Mason Adams. He's just another guy that could move quick. But I feel like there's a lot of
the other night.
There's a lot of guys in the middle of this system, right? Like, I feel like we shortchange Aldrin Bautista a little bit. Like, we don't get to him, but I mean, like, he's one of the pitchers in Canny.
Corella looked amazing this week.
Yeah,
as well.
Corella did look really good. I think who's the 3rd rounder? Seth Keener's probably.
Yeah.
His stuff's like probably a little too good for low A, but I mean,
Lucas Gordon looked good.
Yeah, Lucas Gordon, who's a guy that's like not even ranked for us as a back end lefty, who we kind of said like we expected this. Like he's a lefty, he's a soft toss and lefty that really knows how to pitch. Those guys fare well in low A Kannapolis, like against teenagers for the most part. And then I think maybe the most troublesome so far, like he's only 19, but Samuel Zavala struggles in high A, not great.
Yeah.
It's strikeouts. Like it's no walks. He's not really hitting at all. And he did struggle in high A, briefly with San Diego too. So, you just hope that he's still young. So I don't know if like a move to low A helps or if you just kind of let him get through it. Wes Kath lived this last year,
Sure did. He wore it for an entire season.
And now he's out kind of on the other side of it. So,
yeah.
We'll see how it goes for Samuel Zavala, but regardless, the first 2 pieces of that trade were pretty good.
Yeah, and the defense, I mean, his defense has looked pretty stinking good. So, I'm not going to complain about Zavala. It's kind of one of those things where I see the potential there.
Yeah.
It's just, there's been a lot of contact. So he's not, he's striking out at a decent clip as well, but the balls just haven't been falling for him when he does hit it. So, I'm not really worried about it. We come back and revisit this in late July and he's still batting 185. Then we'll have this conversation again.
So I know you, sorry, were you going to go ahead?
I was just going to mention, that, there are some other interesting developments, like I mentioned Riley Gowans earlier, that he was fantastic. And then you got Jake Bockenstead with the Cannonballers, which he's looked fantastic as well. I mean, there's guys just popping up out of nowhere, guys that you are not looking to get these kind of performances from, and they're just performing and they're striking guys out and they're just getting outs and just generating and churning innings, It's really, really nice to see. That's all.
Well, like the pitching development seems to be in a pretty good spot. So
yeah,
like speaking of pitching development, and I know we were going to get into this a little bit, get ready because the White Sox made their first trade. It kind of came out of nowhere because I was like, wait, they traded Robbie Grossman back to Texas where he was. That's kind of weird, right? And then you look at the prospect they got for him and it's like a guy that's good, which was even more surprising, the whole thing. So I guess, first of all, can you say that guy's name for everyone? And second of all,
It's
like he's pretty good, right? You can just talk about how good he, like the guy that they actually got for Robbie Grossman.
yeah. So it's Anthony Hoopi Tua Onatoa, I
Tui,
think.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's like Tua Onanona
He
Tui
needs
Onanatoa or
he
something.
needs
Yeah, it's
he
tough.
needs a nickname.
Yeah, well, his nickname is Bubba.
That's
That's what they
great.
call him.
That'll
Yeah,
work.
and
Yeah,
I just been calling him AHT because it's
yeah,
easy. Unfortunately, he came in yesterday with a what was it, a 1-0 lead, and he gave up a 3-run homer in his first batter faced. But then he struck out the next two guys. But let's get past his first
yeah,
appearance with the Barons, which obviously, yeah, okay, that really sucks that he blew an amazing start from Kai Bush. But let's go deeper than that with the Frisco Rail Riders, the Rangers AA team. He's got like a .89 WHIP. I think he's got like a 0 ERA. He hadn't given up a run since last September because he pitched through the entire AFL, didn't give up a run, hadn't given up a run until yesterday in his first appearance. So it's been 6 months since the guy had given up a run.
yeah.
So I'd say that's and the thing is, he's not old either. It's not like they traded for a 27-year-old reliever. This guy, I believe, if I remember correctly,
23, I think.
yeah, he's either 23 or 24.
So I talked
So
to somebody on the Texas side who said that he was about to be named their minor league pitcher of the month too. Like, I don't know. It's a guy the White Sox clearly liked. I wonder how that comes about. Like, does Getz call them and say, "Hey, I want this guy. Do you want anything from us?" Like,
it can't. It
did they
can't
call
be.
for Grossman? I mean, I
They
don't like.
had to have, right?
You
They
would
had
think
to have
so.
called specifically for Grossman because I don't see any reason because the Rangers are looking for pitching help out of the bullpen. So I don't see any reason why they're giving away that for
Yeah.
Robbie Grossman.
Well, I will say Grossman's got like a 950 OPS against lefties. So maybe it's like one specific skill that their big league team needs. I know I heard Jim Callis on local radio this week kind of said the Rangers have a glut of like close to the big leagues relievers. Why they deem this guy the expendable one, who knows, right? But maybe the White Sox held up kind of a hard bargain. Like they were like, this is the guy we want, or we'll just keep Robbie Grossman, which good. Maybe that bodes well for when they trade Chris Flexen and when they trade Tommy Pham, like maybe you can actually get like I was just like it's just weird because it's May and it's Robbie Grossman and you just signed him for nothing. Like you signed him for a minor league deal. Like Texas could have just signed him.
Yeah, no, they could have, but the thing is that the same day that they put Wyatt Langford on the IL is the day that they made the trade.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. But the thing I really don't get is why not try and sign anybody else instead of giving up a guy who's got a .89 WHIP and hasn't given up a run in 6 months. Like when I saw that trade, I was like, what just happened here? I have no idea why Texas would make that trade unless they think that Robbie Grossman is the
he's the straw that stirs the drink, baby. That's what it is. Yeah.
Culture.
Yeah.
He's a real good clubhouse guy.
Well, that's what Grifol said. He made
everything.
He made an impact on our guys when he was here for 2 weeks.
Fair enough. Fine.
Yeah. Did you
see you later?
Were you familiar with the guy when you saw the name?
Yes, because he was in. I watched him pitch in the fall league last year. I think it was only his second year.
Yeah.
In organized baseball,
he's had some injuries too. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I watched him through the fall league,
and he was he was another like pandemic. He was really affected by the pandemic. I think he didn't pitch, and then he was hurt or whatever. There's a lot of guys like this, but yeah.
It's unfortunate that the pandemic / lockdown like kind of screwed so many guys out of developmental years and just playing time, but yeah, I watched him in the fall league last year and he was awesome. And when we made the trade, I was just like, wow, I can't believe that we
Yeah.
just got this guy for Robbie Grossman.
You're like, what's the
What is
other
going
what you're
on
like,
here?
what else are they giving up? Grossman
Yeah,
and a prospect of some sort for this guy, like,
yeah.
and it wasn't. It was just 1-for-1. The Sox didn't break the trade. I think it was, I don't know who, maybe it was Passon or somebody I saw first. I was on a field trip. I went to, you know, Morton West High School with some eighth graders and looked at my phone on the bus and I was like, oh, trade season has begun. And obviously, like, the Marlins got us rolling with their Luis Arias deal. There's been stuff in Bob Nightingale columns. I always pay attention to Bobby. So, he kind of listed some of the names that the White Sox would trade last week, which, look, nothing terribly surprising. Eloy Jimenez, all the stopgap type of guys, I think they do. I reported something a little bit earlier, and I didn't like put a report. Like I said, I've heard, I didn't source it or anything, but like, I've heard from multiple people, like, and Steve Stone kind of alluded to it on 670 this week. Like, when you're in the White Sox position, like, you're in a position to listen to everything. Like, I don't think there's any untouchables. They're gonna make a lot of trades. I don't think that means that, like, all of a sudden they're trading Luis Robert, but I think we're gonna have these tough conversations. Like, when he comes back and this winter, when he has 3 years left on his deal, like, if your owner is not willing to spend a ton of money and there's nothing to spend the money on, and you can get a Juan Soto trade package, like, I think they're going to think about it. But, I think some people looked at my tweet and they were like, oh, trading Luis Robert would be stupid. Like, yeah, I kind of agree. I think if they traded Luis Robert, like, they're going to get so much in return that, we wouldn't hate it. I think there's like 5 teams in baseball that could even make the trade. And those 5 teams probably don't want to. Like, that's how many prospects it would take. So, look,
Yeah.
while I think they would consider it because Chris Getz is in a position to, like, set the team up over the next 10 years instead of the next 2, I don't really see that as likely. The one that's interesting to me is Garrett Crochet because it's 2.5 years of team control. I don't know that they can get good enough next year. So I don't think there's any reason to, like, rush out and trade him either. But I think if they, like, did it, I wouldn't be stunned. And then here, before you, like, chime in here, like, and then Fetty at this point, like, we've gone back and forth on Fetty. Like, I kind of had the epiphany this week that he's like a Scott Boras guy and he's not going to be interested in any sort of short-term thing. Like I would be fine adding like 3 years onto Eric Fetty's deal. I think Bannister found something. They unearthed a guy that's like at least a number 4 starter in the big leagues. So, like, if you could keep that guy, that'd be great. I think they're going to be in a position where contenders are going to come calling in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and they'll get enough to just deal him, and Thorpe or somebody will take over for him, and they'll probably trade Eric Fetty, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. With the glut of pitching the White Sox have, I don't see why, if that's something that is going to return you significant value, I don't see any reason why you hold on to it. And just to throw some context here on the Luis Robert trade conversation. Yes, I understand that you don't want to trade him. The Florida Marlins only had 1 year of control for Arias, and a couple of the guys that they traded for with the Padres, they got Nathan Martorella and Jacob Marcy, and those 2 guys just made the Barons' life hell for an entire week in their, first initial series with the Blue Wahoos in Double-A for the Marlins. These are the kind of things that GMs do that remake clubs, that makes the team so much better over years. This is this was a no-brainer. The team's going nowhere. You got the guy for a couple of years. You get as much as you can back. Although we did see that that tweet about the where are they now for which
Oh,
trade?
yeah, the one to the Brewers for Yelich was awful.
Yes, that
And then
one.
even like the Stanton one was bad, but Stanton was owed so much money that you were going to make a bad trade. The
Yeah.
Yelich one,
Oof.
oh, Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, I never was a fan of Lewis Brinson. He was rumored a lot. He was
Yeah,
rumored a lot in trade talks for like Jose Quintana, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in
me
your
either.
like all defense athletes that like can't get on base. Yeah, that's bad. So yeah, no, and look, I don't think that's happening. Like
I don't either.
if they even considered trading Luis Robert, it is going to be an absolute ton. Because look, what did we talk about earlier? Like we said, like if this thing is trending in a direction where it's Caro and Lee with Montgomery, Ramos, the possibility of Gonzalez, and that doesn't mean that all these guys are going to hit, right? But at least you're like young and interesting. You can just keep Luis Robert in center field with those guys. Like you don't have to trade this person, but if you can get 5 prospects and remake your team, like look at the Nationals right now, right? Like the Nationals haul for Juan Soto
James Woods.
is great, but like it
Yeah,
should be because they freaking traded Juan Soto, you know,
true.
like, and Mackenzie Gore's back. They did some good scouting there. And then Abrams obviously like looks like one of the better young shortstops in the National League. So, you know, if you can get that, then I'm all for it, but they won't do it if they can't get that. The other thing, like, you know, I think we're going to see a lot of these 1-year guys, like Tommy Pham will get spun for something, and we'll be on this podcast telling people about like the AA bullpen arm that they get in return. That's interesting, right? But I think this version of Michael Kopech is going to bring back quite a bit. Like, I think that we've seen Michael Kopech, and maybe like White Sox fans are like waiting for the other shoe to drop, or like for his 5 walk inning or whatever. But there are teams that just don't care about the wildness. All they care about is the Ks and the stuff, and they think they can fix command. Your Phillies, the Rays, the Dodgers, even the Cubs to an extent would just say, whatever, give me a year and a half of that guy that throws that hard, and like we can, you know, make it so some of his issues like aren't really issues for us. I think when Kopech goes, I think people are going to kind of be surprised what they get back.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're gonna get something fairly decent back in return for that. Something that you know we don't necessarily see at this point.
They are. Is it on South? Let me guess. South Side Showdown, or what's the other one? Sports Mockery. It's probably Sports Mockery would be my guess.
Yeah, I have not seen it.
I haven't broken anything. That was a minor part of that. And I think my tweet was very like, it said nobody's off limits. Because nobody is. Like,
Yep.
you can't be. They have what do they have? 12 wins? They're 12-29. I don't think oh yeah,
They're back. I don't know if you knew this,
yeah,
but in the last 16 games, they've got a better record than the team on the other side of town. So
yeah,
hold your tongue, sir.
yeah, that's true. All right, that's fine. They're back. I'm in.
Yeesh.
No, it's ugly. Yeah, that okay. Well, I'm not that surprised, I guess, by that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like creating content for people. That's fine.
What is going on here? Go away. There we go.
But who do you think? Who do you think is the next one? Is it Flexen because Bob mentioned him? Like a random Wednesday,
Well, I mean,
10:28 a.m. trade.
Yeah, because it's like a really weird thing to.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Out.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarre. And like the thing, and like when they signed him, and when I heard Ethan Katz, Ethan Katz did an interview with our Chuck, and they were talking about how he had tried to incorporate a sweeper into his arsenal, and that they felt that the east-west motion of the pitch screwed up everything that he did really well, which is the north-south thing, and that they were going to fix that. So it really doesn't surprise me that they've made him pseudo effective again, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's back to 2021 flexing and it looks halfway decent for the rest of the year.
Well,
but,
also, he was Colorado, right, which does not help. So
that's never a good thing for any pitcher. Like you have to have like very, very good swing and miss stuff, and it has to be all the time
Yeah.
to be good there.
I never looked, like, was he bad for Seattle at the end, or did they trade him to Colorado?
Yeah, so the last year that he was with them, he was not great, if I remember correctly. It's been since we picked him up since I've
And
looked at
then he
those
signed
stats.
with Colorado, and it wasn't
Yeah,
great. And then, I
yeah,
mean, they signed him for $1 million. And that's why, like, I didn't look at it, and I don't have it in front of me. And Bob said, like, he called him a hot commodity. But I think it's mostly because he's like a back end starter making 1 million. That's why. It's because all your luxury tax teams and stuff that might have pitching issues would throw you like a back end top 30 guy for him. And if that's the case, the White Sox should do it as soon as possible, because he could turn back into bad Chris Flexen at any moment's notice, I feel like.
yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. So in let's see here, 2023, 7.71 ERA with Seattle. Got traded to Colorado, 6.27 ERA, and yeah, that's after 2 years in 21 and 22, where he was at 3.61 and 3.73 in Seattle.
Yeah, and
Which,
he did and I think he started the sweeper thing in Seattle. But
yeah, and the thing that you also have to look at is when you look at pitcher numbers, how everybody talks about how Colorado has insane park factor, how guaranteed rate has pretty crazy park factor as well. Seattle has it in the opposite direction. So everybody that pitches there generally tends to look a little bit better. So,
well, that's why I think people were worried a little bit about Robbie Ray, and obviously they traded him to the Giants. I don't even think he's pitching yet, right? Because he was hurt. Because he's
TJ.
out. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Seattle's
TJ in tight pants.
It's always kind of, yeah. Remember that? That was so. Can you imagine him in these Nike pants? My goodness.
Oh
gracious.
man, you'd be able to see his internal organs.
Yeah. My goodness.
Yikes. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd say probably Flexen is probably going to be first, just because of that weird tweet that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm actually kind of curious who else that you could expect to be moved, like early in
like
this,
prior to the
especially
deadline.
this early. Yeah, especially this early.
I do kind of think if, like, obviously the Robbie Grossman thing, right? Like I kind of feel like they could trade Tommy Pham whenever. And I know, like, the Pham resurgence is like one of the reasons why the White Sox are back, right? Like him playing well. And like, look, Tommy Pham, I think I've said on this podcast, like, is good. So, that's a guy who playoff teams like might want.
He should.
So
So
he's also
never been on the White Sox. So he's never made it there.
So he's also good at the bank, by the way. So he holds out for too much money, but then he takes the most money that he can get with the White Sox, knowing that, like, they're just going to deal him to a contender anyway, and he'll still get paid more than contenders were willing to give him. So good on him. But I mean, that's the same thing. Like, we could be at work at any point, and there's just a random White Sox deal at 10 o'clock in the morning. And, like, like, because we have so many guys that they're just going to, okay. Cause like, you just open up a spot for a guy, like, not Oscar Colas. We'll probably never see him again as long as Pedro's here, but
hit a home run today.
Yeah. You could, like, trade Tommy Pham and start the Zach DeLoach era or something, who knows? But yeah, I think any of these guys could go at any time. Whereas I think your big ones will wait. Like Kopech, that's a July 27th deal, like.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that'll be one of those things where, Chris Getz can, like, really take somebody behind the woodshed and get some really good value for something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Tommy Pham could be one of those things that, you just, like exactly with the Grossman thing. I was in the chiropractor. I came out of the chiropractor. I see the trade. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And that's exactly what
you thought you were looking at. You thought you were loopy. You thought it was fake. Like, you're
what is going on here?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? I don't know. But hey, you take that kind of thing. You got anything else on the major league team? Anything?
Nothing.
Of interest
I think
here?
we're good. Other than, I mean, so I talked to Grant Taylor obviously back in March. I've been waiting to write something. I kind of looped it in with some quotes from Mike Shirley from draft night, and just kind of looked at Taylor, like, where it all kind of began for him to now. He's got kind of an interesting family. Like, both of his brothers pitched at Arkansas. his older brother was like a ninth rounder. He's a reliever in the Marlins system. The oldest one wasn't really a pro prospect, but I mean, he pitched high level college baseball in the SEC. And then there's like a younger sister that I believe is like a pretty high level athlete too. Because looking back, there were some quotes from Shirley on draft night, just like really hyping up like the family and talking about when you have that many like, people that want to compete on a daily basis, like it makes you better stuff, scouting stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, some of that is in there. I think he's pretty interesting. I think once he gets to a full season, we'll learn more. I know our Dan Victor talked to some players, but even like some coaches and scouts have described him as like a multiplier out there because he makes other guys better. And players have said they liked having him around just because he's one of these really analytical guys. But you'll see in the article if you want to read it. So he was the president of the Spanish club at his high school, and he was in the 30 plus ACT. He was in the 30 plus ACT club and National Honor Society. So smart kid apparently.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's nice having smart guys. It's like I said earlier this year. I like keeping smart people around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
So the draft.
Yes.
Just want to check and see Nate George and Manuka.
Yeah.
He's raking. The White Sox generally seem to grab high school talent from in the near area. He is 23 for 49 in the last 15 games. He's pretty good. This seems like it's right up the White Sox alley for the kind of guy that the White Sox grab.
With one of those 4 picks. And I reached out to some people today, and the answer was, yeah, we really like Nate George, but like Hudson Belinsky's out of his mind for tweeting that. Just like the Trout thing, like don't put that on. Don't put that on any, right. Like, but yeah, he's been really good down here. I kind of knew who he was because he played football at Manuka. So he was like a 3-sport guy.
Right next door.
Yeah, he was a 3-sport guy. That's really close to me. So yeah, I mean, look, I always kind of look at the commitment. It's Eastern Illinois, so my guess is like he's probably going to go pro. Would be my guess. Like I don't know what the money would be, right? But if somebody gives him a couple $1 million, maybe even less than that, I don't know.
Yeah, the George Wolkow deal.
Yeah, and George Wolkow was supposed to go to South Carolina. And he was like, yeah, I have no interest in that. Like, I'll go pro, right? So I don't know how Nate George feels, but
yeah,
Eastern Illinois is not a tough commitment to buy a guy out of usually. So yeah, he's one of the local guys that we'll hear about. There's a lot in this area. York has pitcher Ryan Sloan, who's like a definite like top 45, top 50 pitcher.
Like 99 or something, isn't he?
Yeah, like he's just big and nasty, like and really good. And obviously, like people are scared of high school righties, but he's really good. Lincoln Way East has a kid that's in like the top 150 for places. So yeah, there's some guys in the area for sure.
Interesting. I mean, I assume everything in college is pretty much the same thing. So there's no new movement that you know of. Not really any.
No, and it's like 9. So it's like those 2 high school guys, and then like the 7 college guys are like everybody's like top 9 or so, and the order will be determined by money. So that's fun. I think there was a mock. We hadn't talked. Kylie McDaniel had a mock, I think, and he had Bazana 1, which is what we had speculated. I mean, he fits the Cleveland profile to a T, and they might be able to save a little. And then he kind of put in there that Charlie Condon doesn't get past 2. So, so then he'll be off the board. He linked Nick Kurtz to Oakland at 4.
Wow.
I believe he had the White Sox taking Hagen Smith. But he did mention like the prep interest, like along with that. So,
Hagen Smith. Yeah. I mean, that's the guy who we talked about that, with Callis that we would be interested in grabbing, being left-handed and all that. That would
for
be
sure.
nice.
And I do think like we have a ways to go, but at this point, if it's not one of those 2 pitchers or one of those 2 prep guys, I'd be a little bit surprised, like if it's just like one of the, like even like a Braden Montgomery, who I kind of like, That would just like surprise me because I think they'd like to go high school and save a little bit or take the best arm in the draft. So we'll see. I might change my mind 5 more times. So
Well, I mean, we still have what 2 months until draft time. So
yeah, 8 or 9 shows probably, and we'll have some guests. So yeah, once we get closer to it.
all right then. You got anything else for this week?
No, I think we're all good. I'll get back
Alrighty.
to angering White Sox fans on Twitter and having articles written about my thoughts. So that's good.
Good. I like seeing that as well. It makes me laugh.
Just tag. They should tag me though, because I didn't see it. So
Yeah, that's fair. If you're gonna subtweet / sub article somebody, you should at least let them know that you're doing it.
yeah, I'll get a text tomorrow from that's like, hey, my buddy said that you said that the White Sox were trading Luis Robert. And I'll be like, I did not say that, but okay.
Yeah. FutureSox.net. You can find all of our written content. You can find the aforementioned Grant Taylor interview / article that James will be putting out. Should be coming out tomorrow or Tuesday. You can find that there. You could also find a link for our Patreon where you can subscribe to us and support all of the work that we do. If you are listening to this in podcast form, know that on Sunday nights at 8 p.m., James and I are on YouTube and on Twitch. So you can watch this live, and we do have video highlights here and there. You can find this podcast anywhere that you are looking for podcasts. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at JamesFox917. We appreciate all of your time. We thank you guys for coming in and hanging out. And you can also go on to our YouTube page and find all of the nightly starting pitching that all the highlights for all that stuff. I post that stuff every night that there's games. So we skip Monday nights, but Tuesday through Sunday, you can always find all the home runs and all the strikeouts from starting pitching on our YouTube. We appreciate you guys so much. You guys have a great night, and we will talk to you guys next week on Sunday at 8 p.m. Thank you so much.